Medics devote their lives to unraveling the mysteries of the human body, grounded in science, facts, and empirical evidence. Yet, despite their expertise in life and death, some have encountered phenomena that defy all logic, near-death experiences that shake the very foundations of their beliefs. When seasoned doctors and nurses, trained to recognize the finality of death, return with haunting accounts of consciousness persisting beyond the body, their revelations cannot be ignored. Are these glimpses into the afterlife mere hallucinations, or do they hint at something far more profound? Could death be more than just an end, but a doorway to the unknown? In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, the medical community largely dismissed the notion of an afterlife, focusing instead on tangible scientific advancements. Amid this prevailing skepticism, an English nurse named Joy Snell emerged with compelling accounts that challenged conventional beliefs. Through her work and personal experiences, Snell provided detailed narratives suggesting interactions with the spiritual realm. Documented in her 1918 book, The Ministry of Angels, Joy Snell dedicated her life to nursing, primarily caring for terminally ill patients in a large hospital setting. Her career spanned the late 19th and early 20th centuries, a period marked by significant medical and scientific progress. Despite the era's empirical focus, Snell's experiences led her to explore phenomena beyond the physical realm. Her role brought her into close contact with death, providing her with unique insights into the final moments of life. In The Ministry of Angels, Snell chronicled her experiences with what she described as spiritual phenomena. The book, first published in 1918, serves as an autobiographical account of her encounters with the supernatural. Snell detailed instances where she perceived the presence of angels and other ethereal beings attending to the dying, offering comfort and guidance during their transition. Her narratives aimed to provide solace to those grieving, suggesting that death was not an end, but a passage to another form of existence. Throughout her nursing career, Snell observed numerous patients in their final moments. She noted that many appeared to interact with unseen presences, often expressing comfort and peace as death approached. In her book, Snell recounted witnessing luminous figures near the bedsides of the dying, which she interpreted as angels assisting in the transition from life to death. These observations reinforced her belief in a compassionate force aiding individuals during their final journey. Snell's conviction in an afterlife was profoundly influenced by her own near-death experience. She recounted an episode during a severe illness where she felt herself detach from her physical body. In this state, Snell described entering a realm suffused with light and an overwhelming sense of peace. She claimed to have encountered benevolent entities, perceiving a profound sense of unity and interconnectedness with the universe. This experience, as detailed in her writings, solidified her belief in the continuity of existence beyond physical death. Joy Snell's accounts, as presented in The Ministry of Angels, offer a perspective that challenges the strictly materialistic view of life and death prevalent in her time. Her detailed observations and personal experiences suggest that existence may extend beyond our physical lives, providing a source of comfort and hope to those contemplating the mysteries of mortality. But that was more than 100 years ago, when medicine and science were not as developed as they are now. Let's move on to the next character in this video. Dr. Mary Neal was a highly skilled orthopedic spine surgeon, a woman of science, logic, and reason. Her career was built on precision, her beliefs grounded in what could be measured and proven. She had spent years studying the human body, understanding its limitations, and treating those who had suffered serious injuries. Death to her was a biological process, the body shutting down, nothing more. But all of that changed one fateful day when she drowned in a tragic kayaking accident and experienced something that defied every scientific explanation she had ever known. It was supposed to be an adventurous yet routine trip down a river in Chile. Mary was an experienced kayaker, confident in the water, but on this particular day, fate had other plans. As she maneuvered through the rushing rapids, her kayak was suddenly trapped beneath a waterfall. The powerful force of the water pinned her down, holding her beneath the surface, and no matter how hard she struggled, she could not break free. She was stuck, unable to breathe, and she knew with absolute certainty that she was going to die. Panic gave way to an eerie sense of calm. As the oxygen left her body, she expected fear and agony, but instead something extraordinary happened. She felt herself leave her physical body as if she had simply slipped out of it like an old garment. What came next was beyond anything she could have imagined. She found herself in a place of indescribable beauty, bathed in a light that was not just seen but felt. It radiated warmth, love, and a sense of belonging so powerful that it erased all fear. She was not alone. Surrounding her were luminous beings, gentle, compassionate, and full of wisdom. They emanated love in a way that words could never capture. She felt as though she had known them forever, as if they had always been a part of her existence, waiting for her to return. They communicated with her, not with words, but through a deep, instantaneous knowing. They reassured her that everything was as it should be, that she was safe, and that she was deeply loved. She felt no pain, no sadness, only an overwhelming sense of peace. Time did not exist in the way it did on Earth. She was shown glimpses of her life, not as a judgment, but as a gentle reflection, a reminder of the love she had given and received. It was a moment of clarity, a realization that life on Earth was just a small chapter in a much greater journey. She wanted to stay. Every part of her being longed to remain in this realm of beauty, but the beings told her something that changed everything. It was not her time. She still had work to do. There were things left unfinished, people she needed to help, a purpose she had yet to fulfill. And then, in an instant, she was back. Her lifeless body had been pulled from the water, and against all odds, her rescuers had managed to revive her. She gasped for air, coughing up water, her body battered and weak, but her soul forever changed. The experience left her shaken but enlightened. As a doctor, she had always believed in what she could see, touch, and study, but now she had encountered something that transcended science. She could no longer dismiss the idea that consciousness existed beyond the body, that life continued even after death. Her NDE transformed the way she viewed medicine, spirituality, and the very nature of existence. She knew she had to share her story, not to convince skeptics, but to offer hope to those who feared death. She wrote To Heaven and Back, a book detailing her journey and the profound lessons it had taught her. Through her words, she reached thousands of people, comforting those who had lost loved ones and inspiring those who questioned what lay beyond this life. Dr. Mary Neal's experience stands as one of the most compelling accounts of a near-death experience, not just because of its beauty, but because of who she was. A doctor, a scientist, a woman who had no reason to believe in an afterlife until she saw it with her own eyes. Her story serves as a reminder that death is not the end, but a doorway to something far greater than we can comprehend. Dr. Rajiv Parti was the embodiment of success in the material world. As a top anesthesiologist, he had built a life filled with luxury, an extravagant mansion, high-end cars, and the prestige that came with being at the peak of his career. He valued wealth, status, and power, believing that happiness could be found in accumulating more. But despite all of his success, something was missing. Beneath the surface, his life was riddled with stress, strained relationships, and a deep sense of emptiness. He dismissed anything spiritual as superstition, convinced that science held all the answers. That belief shattered when he faced a severe medical crisis that would take him to the brink of death and force him to confront the true purpose of his existence. It began with a diagnosis of prostate cancer, followed by complications that led to a severe infection. As his condition worsened, he was rushed into emergency surgery. Lying on the operating table, the last thing he remembered was the cold, sterile environment of the hospital, the beeping of machines, and the masked faces of the surgeons preparing to work on him. Then, in an instant, everything changed. He found himself floating above his body, looking down at the scene below with an eerie sense of detachment. He could see the surgeons working frantically, hear their voices, and even observe details that he could not possibly have known from his physical perspective. But instead of panic, he felt an incredible lightness, as if he had been freed from the burdens of his earthly existence. Then he was pulled into a tunnel of light, moving effortlessly towards something beyond his comprehension. What awaited him on the other side was nothing like he had ever imagined. He entered a realm of radiant beauty, a place filled with an overwhelming sense of love and peace. He saw celestial beings, figures of light who exuded kindness and wisdom. Among them was his deceased father, a man with whom he had shared a strained and difficult relationship in life. But here, there was no resentment, no pain, only love and understanding. His father communicated with him, not through words, but through an unspoken connection that transcended language. And then came the moment that would change everything. His life review. It was as if a movie of his life was played before him, but not just from his own perspective. He saw the moments when he had been unkind, the times when his ambition had caused pain to others, the ways he had prioritized wealth over love. He felt the emotions of those he had hurt, not as an outsider, but as if he were living in their bodies, experiencing their sadness, disappointment, and suffering. It was a revelation that shattered him. He had spent his life chasing the wrong things, blind to the deeper purpose of existence. The spiritual beings surrounding him made it clear he had to change. His time on earth was not over, and he had been given this experience as a second chance. He had to return, not to continue his old ways, but to live differently, to embrace compassion, humility, and love. And just as suddenly as he had left, he was back. Gasping for breath, his body weak and frail, he awoke in the hospital bed, forever changed. The man who had once worshipped success and materialism no longer existed. From that day forward, he abandoned his old pursuits. He walked away from his lucrative career, sold his mansion, and dedicated his life to spreading a message of love, healing, and spiritual awakening. He wrote Dying to Wake Up, a book in which he shared his journey and the lessons he had learned. He began speaking publicly about his experience, despite knowing that many in the medical community would doubt him. But he no longer cared about prestige or validation. His purpose was clear. Dr. Rajiv Parti's story is not just about life after death. It is about transformation. He was a man who had everything but was spiritually empty, and only through death did he finally understand what it meant to truly live. His experience serves as a powerful reminder that our purpose on earth is not to accumulate wealth or status, but to love, to connect, and to uplift those around us. It is proof that even the most hardened skeptics can be touched by something beyond this world, and that the greatest journey of all begins not with success, but with the awakening of the soul. Before I talk about the next character in the video, I want to point out that here I have mentioned mostly only the positive aspects of his near-death experience, as I don't want to prolong the video too much. There are several videos about Rajiv on my channel that fully describe his entire journey to the afterlife, where in fact, everything was not so joyful because he happened to see hell. And now let's move on to the next hero of the video. Dr. Eben Alexander was a man of science, a neurosurgeon who had spent decades studying the human brain and its complexities. He believed that consciousness was nothing more than the product of neural activity, that near-death experiences were simply hallucinations caused by a dying brain, and that any idea of an afterlife was nothing more than wishful thinking. To him, the accounts of patients who claimed to have visited the other side were nothing but tricks of the mind, on by oxygen deprivation and chemical imbalances. But everything he thought he knew was shattered when he himself fell into a deep coma and embarked on a journey that defied all logic and scientific explanation. His ordeal began when he was struck by a rare and aggressive form of bacterial meningitis, an infection that attacked his brain with terrifying speed. Within hours, his condition deteriorated, and he was rushed to the hospital, where doctors worked frantically to save his life. His neocortex, the part of the brain responsible for thought, reasoning, and self-awareness, was completely shut down. By all medical standards, he had no functioning consciousness. His body lay lifeless, his mind inactive, and yet what happened next was more vivid and real than anything he had ever experienced. He found himself in a place unlike anything on earth, an extraordinary realm filled with beauty beyond imagination. At first, he was in a dark, murky space, a place of deep forgetfulness where his sense of self was barely intact. But then, suddenly, he was lifted out of the darkness by a magnificent light, emerging into a world of breathtaking splendor. He was surrounded by clouds of brilliant colors, alive with an energy he could feel in every part of his being. Everything vibrated with music, an indescribable symphony that filled the air, not just heard with the ears, but felt with the soul. He was not alone. A beautiful, radiant being accompanied him, a woman of indescribable grace who communicated with him without words. She conveyed a message that changed him forever. You are loved, you are cherished, you have nothing to fear, you will always be taken care of. The love he felt in that moment was beyond anything he had ever known, pure, unconditional, and infinite. He traveled through celestial realms, encountering angelic beings who radiated wisdom and joy. He felt completely at home, as though he had always belonged in this place but had somehow forgotten. There was no fear, no doubt, only peace and the absolute certainty that this world was more real than anything he had ever known. He was given knowledge, a deep understanding of the universe and its interconnectedness. He saw that life was not random, that everything had a purpose, and that love was the fundamental force that held everything together. He understood that his earthly existence was only a small part of a much greater journey, that consciousness was not confined to the physical body, and that death was not an end, but a transition. Then, just as suddenly as he had arrived, he was told that he had to return. He resisted. He did not want to leave this paradise, but there was no choice. His journey was not yet complete, and then he awoke. After 7 days in a coma, when all hope seemed lost, he opened his eyes. His body was weak, his mind still trying to process what had happened, but one thing was clear: he was no longer the same man. His miraculous recovery stunned doctors. By all medical reasoning, he should not have survived, and even if he did, he should have suffered severe brain damage. But instead, he returned not only fully intact, but with a mind that had been expanded beyond anything he had ever believed possible. The scientist who had once dismissed near-death experiences as fantasy now knew, without a doubt, that they were real. His training as a neurosurgeon told him that what he had seen could not have been a hallucination. His brain had been completely shut down, incapable of producing dreams or illusions. What he had experienced was something else entirely. He felt compelled to share his story with the world, to bridge the gap between science and spirituality, and to challenge the rigid materialism that denied the existence of anything beyond the physical realm. He wrote Proof of Heaven, a book that became a bestseller and ignited conversations about consciousness, the afterlife, and the nature of reality. His story resonated with millions, offering hope and validation to those who had experienced similar journeys and challenging skeptics to reconsider their beliefs. Dr. Eben Alexander's near-death experience is one of the most profound ever recorded, not just because of its beauty, but because of who he was. A man of science who had no reason to believe in an afterlife until he saw it for himself. His transformation from skeptic to believer is a testament to the power of direct experience, a reminder that some truths cannot be measured in a laboratory, but must be felt with the heart and soul. His journey proves what many have long suspected, that life does not end with death, that consciousness continues beyond the body, and that love is the ultimate force that binds the universe together. The last hero of the video will be a man who is known to almost everyone who is interested in near-death experiences. Dr. Raymond Moody was not just any physician. He was a man who would change the way the world thought about death forever. A philosopher at heart and a doctor by profession, he was drawn to the deepest mysteries of human existence. He did not set out to prove the afterlife. In fact, when he first heard accounts of near-death experiences, he was skeptical. But as he listened to more and more people recount astonishingly similar experiences of leaving their bodies, traveling through tunnels of light, meeting deceased loved ones, and encountering divine beings, he realized that something extraordinary was happening. These were not hallucinations, not dreams or delusions. They were real experiences that transcended science's ability to explain. Dr. Moody's journey into this uncharted territory began when he was still a medical student. He had always been fascinated by questions of life and death, but it was not until he started interviewing patients who had been clinically dead and revived that he saw a pattern emerging. These people, from all walks of life, told eerily similar stories. They described floating above their bodies, watching doctors and nurses frantically working to revive them. They spoke of a tunnel, a light more brilliant than anything on earth, and a sense of overwhelming love and peace. They saw deceased relatives who welcomed them, encountered beings of wisdom who communicated telepathically, and in many cases experienced a life review, where they saw their entire existence flash before them, not with judgment but with deep understanding. Some returned from their experiences forever changed, losing their fear of death and embracing a newfound sense of purpose and spirituality. Intrigued, Dr. Moody began systematically collecting and analyzing these accounts. He interviewed hundreds of people who had been on the brink of death and returned with remarkable stories. His research culminated in the publication of his groundbreaking book, Life After Life, in 1975, a book that not only introduced the world to the term near-death experience, but also sparked a revolution in how death was perceived. His work challenged the rigid materialism of the medical community, forcing doctors and scientists to reconsider the nature of consciousness. How could so many people from different cultures, religions, and backgrounds report such strikingly similar experiences? How could they describe things they had no way of seeing while unconscious, such as conversations taking place in another room or intricate details of medical procedures? The consistency of these accounts was impossible to ignore. Dr. Moody's research did not stop at collecting stories. He delved into historical texts, finding descriptions of near-death experiences in ancient cultures, religious scriptures, and philosophical writings. He discovered that these encounters were not new. They had been happening for centuries, only dismissed or misinterpreted. His studies also explored the impact of these experiences on people's lives. Many who had once been materialistic or skeptical emerged from their NDEs profoundly transformed. They became more compassionate, more spiritual, and more focused on love and kindness. They no longer feared death because they knew, deep in their souls, that it was not the end. Of course, not everyone was convinced. Skeptics attempted to explain NDEs as mere chemical reactions in the brain, as hallucinations caused by a lack of oxygen, but Dr. Moody remained steadfast. He knew there was something more, something beyond what science could currently measure. His research opened the door for other doctors, scientists, and researchers to investigate further. He inspired countless studies, documentaries, and discussions, bringing near-death experiences from the fringes of mysticism into serious academic and medical consideration. His work also resonated deeply with ordinary people. Those who had lost loved ones found comfort in his research, realizing that death was not an abyss, but a transition to another realm of existence. Many who had their own near-death experiences felt validated, no longer afraid to share what they had seen and felt. Over the years, Dr. Moody continued his work, expanding his research into related phenomena such as shared death experiences, where people at the bedside of a dying loved one reported seeing the same light or spirit beings. His contributions to the field of consciousness studies are immeasurable, and his influence has only grown with time. He has spoken at conferences, appeared in numerous interviews, and written additional books, all aimed at bridging the gap between science and spirituality. His work has inspired thousands, if not millions, to reconsider their views on life, death, and what lies beyond. Thanks to Dr. Raymond Moody, the conversation about near-death experiences has moved from skepticism to serious inquiry, from dismissal to recognition. He has given voice to those who have glimpsed the other side and has helped reshape humanity's understanding of what happens when we die. His research is not just about death, it is about hope, about love, about the realization that consciousness is far more than the physical brain. And most importantly, it is about the profound truth that life does not end when the body does. Death has long been humanity's greatest mystery. But the near-death experiences of doctors and nurses offer a startling revelation. Consciousness continues beyond the body. These trained professionals, rooted in science, have crossed the boundary between life and death and returned with knowledge that challenges everything we believe. Their stories, leaving the body, traveling through tunnels of light, meeting deceased loved ones, and experiencing overwhelming peace, are strikingly similar across cultures and cannot be dismissed as hallucinations. Many recall details they could not have known while unconscious, defying the notion that consciousness is just a product of the brain. If awareness persists beyond death, then dying is not an end but a transition. This changes everything. Fear of death is unfounded, and those we have lost are not truly gone. Near-death experiencers return with a renewed purpose, emphasizing love, kindness, and the importance of how we treat others. Their message is clear: we never truly die. Dear friends, do you believe in life after death? Write in the comments. If you liked my video, please like it. In addition, I recommend watching my other videos, because on my channel I publish only the most exciting and interesting content on the topic of the afterlife. Thanks for watching, and see you soon.